We're gonna let some. All right, welcome Cameron Starr to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. It's so great to be with you today.
Hello, hello. It's great to be invited. Thank you for having me.
All right, you're very welcome. I'm really excited to hear about your story and share it with all the people on Digital Nomad World. So first of all, Cameron, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Background, it's Philadelphia, actually. Quite literally.
I see a tree.
Yeah, this is basically it. I mean, I grew up around Philadelphia, in the city, and also a bit around the city, playing in the woods. And yeah, wanted to travel as much as possible. My parents were pretty big advocates of that as a form of education. So as soon as I was 18, I joined AmeriCorps, which is kind of like Peace Corps, and just got out. Went to New Orleans, started building houses, started getting in trouble, started living life. And I wanted to put that together with my other passion, which was filmmaking. So yeah, I started making documentary films about the people and the places that I would go. And, through my early 20s, found a way to make a living doing that.
Amazing. So I have to ask, how did you get into filmmaking? Did you formally study it, or was it just all on your own and
There
self-study?
was a little bit of formal study, but that is quite expensive and not terribly practical. I mean, I wanted to learn how to make films, not learn how to be like a film critic. So yeah, watching a lot of movies, making a lot of bad movies, trial and error for the most part. And then finding a way to just put yourself out there and get work, just be kind of belligerent and make your name somehow.
Yeah. Okay. And then eventually, I know you got out traveling at a very young age. How did this tuk-tuk come into play and come into
All
your
right.
career? How did you make a tuk-tuk your career? I'm so interested to know.
Right. Well, that's kind of the story, I guess, of how, travel writes its own stories. When you step out the door, you have a plan, and the plan never goes the way you think it's going to. I left when I was 24 to travel the world with a cook who I'd met on a previous backpacking trip. And we met on the streets, and there was a spark, and we're like, let's travel the world together. So we actually did it. We linked up in Italy, did a 9-month trip to Singapore without flying. The plan was to cook for people in exchange for stories along the way, and make a cookbook, or possibly a restaurant when we got to Singapore. But when we got to Singapore, we had $20 left, and we were more or less stranded. But we had this collection of recipes and short documentaries that I had made. So we did the next best thing, which was, let's throw a dinner party. We just started throwing these kind of adventurous, immersive dinner parties where people would come and get to like taste the recipe and see the story and smell the food, and talk to the other people around the table who were mostly strangers. And that gave them a sense of travel, of the experience that that had brought us there. So that was quite cool, and we managed to start making some money, and started a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign to raise some money to get home. And at some point, someone asked us, like, what do you guys really want to do? And we were like, well, we want to get a tuk-tuk, so we don't have to backpack all the time. We can put our bags in the back and drive. Maybe throw some parties.
Whose idea was that, of the two of you, to get the tuk-tuk?
I think it was when we were hitchhiking through Vietnam. It was really hot, and a tuk-tuk picked us up, and we were like, this is luxury. Like, this is really nice. It was like, some farmer's vehicle, but for us that was like a Bugatti or something. It was like, this is great. Um, and then we kept seeing them in Thailand or in Cambodia. So it was, the seed had been planted, and it was just like, we don't want to walk anymore, and we want to have a bigger kitchen, and we want to throw some parties. So we had this idea of like, wouldn't that be nice? But we also need to get home. And then someone at one dinner asked us the fateful question, are you going to drive the tuk-tuk all the way home? And we were like, we didn't want to kill the vibe. So we were like, yes, of course, we're going to drive the tuk-tuk home. And so, yeah, that was basically it. It was written at that point. We had to now go get a tuk-tuk and drive it home. The way that worked out was, well, in India, everything's possible. So we went to India. We got a tuk-tuk and
Where did
managed
you
to
get
eat.
the tuk-tuk in India? I've been to
All right.
India a few times. I'm curious if you started in the south or if you got it
All right.
up in the
Let's
north
do
area.
this. Let's do
Yeah.
this. So we had a friend named Tara, who, her family was from Northeast India, from like Guwahati, Shillong, the Seven Sisters region, which is kind of like this little like northeast nub between like Bhutan and Bangladesh and like Myanmar. If you've ever seen the picture of like the living bridges, like the trees that are like intertwined and
Oh, yeah.
creating these like double-decker bridges, basically there. Um, so our friend Tara, her father had just passed away, and she wanted to open a pop-up restaurant like in his honor and try to like revive this old space that he had and bring it back to like the 70s when he used to be like a bohemian kind of guy and liked having these sort of gatherings of people. So we went there to try to honor her dream of opening this space, and she said, and I can definitely help you get a tuk-tuk. So we went and we opened a pop-up restaurant and somehow managed to buy a brand new Piaggio Ape car tuk-tuk, and spend the next month building a house on the back of it with the help of local steel workers and craftsmen in Shillong who spoke very little English. So there was a lot of like just kind of drawing sketches, and the process was quite funny. But in the end, we managed to build a house on three wheels for about $4,000,
Wow.
and then we just had something like 13,000 kilometers to go.
And do you have a like a functioning kitchen off the
Yes.
in this tuk-tuk? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I should have really like brought like a little like press kit or something because I've made plenty. Uh, in the back of this tuk-tuk, which was probably about, like, I'm not sure about in meters. It was maybe like a meter 90 in length and probably about a meter and a half wide. So enough for you to lay down, like a small bed is like the size of the back, which is what it was meant to be. It was like a storage bed. And people would put like big like gas tanks in there, or like you could fit probably like three small cows, or you could fit like loads of boxes of vegetables. But it's like a little storage transit vehicle. That's what they're made for. But we transformed ours into a home. So we had, on one side a small kitchen, and then we had on the other side sort of a mattress that folded, and you could sit on that. And then at nighttime, all the sides would open up, and you could make the mattress extend so you could sleep. The kitchen would like slide out. Above us, we had all of our storage in this kind of caravan looking tent that we built with steel frames around the whole thing, so you could store things on top. My friend made this very crafty net, so it was like this net storage, but things would just fall out of there all the time. So it was not so crafty in the end. You'd be in the back just thinking like, oh wow, this is very dangerous, and then you'd have like your shoes falling on your head, and you're like, this is just crazy. Like, what are we doing? Um, but all right, more questions would be good. Probably we could hone in on this.
I'm wondering who did the driving. Did you have a lot of driving experience in this kind of terrain with a tuk-tuk as well? Because I know it's very different from driving a car.
Yes. So I actually, being American, had no experience driving manual vehicles before the moment when I got behind the wheel. It's not even a wheel, but behind the handlebars of this tuk-tuk in like evening traffic in Shillong. And Shillong is a city of probably about 300,000 people. It's quite small by Indian standards, and everyone is out and about. And so it took me, I think, about an hour to drive like 3 kilometers to get from the garage back to the restaurant. My first time. I had to have some kid, like a 7-year-old, show me how to start it. Like, there's no steering wheel. It's handlebars. There's a clutch on your left hand and your throttle's on the right. So that's pretty unique. Like motorbikes don't even work that way. And you've got a series of like little switches and like pedals to park it or to brake or to start it. She goes about max speed like 45 kilometers an hour, unless you're going downhill or the engine's on fire, both of which happened. And that's what broke our record speeds. We got to about 60 when the engine was on fire.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, I mean, my trial by fire, like, trial and error kind of mentality when it came to travel and filmmaking, just immediately applied to tuk-tuk driving. It's like you just have to try. And my friend was a little more cautious than I was and a better driver. So he was terribly worried that I was going to get us killed, which is fair because there's like, all hell breaking loose on the roads of India all the time. You have a variety of vehicles that you could never imagine, ranging from camels to wheelchairs, to giant trucks, to jeeps and buses, and I don't know, someone just walking around, or a horse that's tied in the middle of the road and you can't figure out why, or you get everything, all at once, all the time, and it's quite incredible. I'm happy we could only go about 40 kilometers an hour, because like anything faster than that would be very dangerous. But we were
so.
kind of like the walls of this tuk-tuk are about like as thin as like a soda can. Like anything happens, we're done. And there's no amount of like, white privilege is going to save you when a bus just takes you out. And we were inches away from that all the time. And it was great. If there's any kind of spiritual philosophy I learned from India, it's just through driving for like hours and hours a day for months on end, because you learn to kind of relinquish some sense of control and really just kind of trust, and also be highly vigilant in a very peaceful state. And when you see the people, I mean, they show you how it's done. They're driving around smiling. People have their whole family on a motorbike, 5 people, and it's raining, and they're just smiling. They're just like, this is so cool. Like, this is great. I have my whole life's in my hands. I'm with my family. It's raining. This is great. I'm like, oh my God. Like, okay, that's how you got to do it, I guess. You just got to like, just smile and lean in.
Love that. And I can only imagine how close you felt to all the people you traveled with and past. Did people come and join you in the tuk-tuk?
Sometimes pick up some hitchhikers, like generally like local people who are trying to get from one place to another. And they would be like asking us to slow down, and then they'd see us and they'd kind of be like, do we get in? Like, we've never seen anything like this before. because we're driving through these little villages, and for sure many people had never seen like a Westerner, especially not two of them in a tuk-tuk, like with a goat. We had like a pet goat for a while. So they'd just be like, what? Okay, should we really get it? Like, it's the first time you see people kind of like freeze. But often they would jump on board and take the ride and try to pay us, which we didn't accept. But yeah, the proximity was really, really intense and really memorable in India, because you really are shoulder to shoulder with everybody, like all the time. It's hard to get, and it's kind of interesting. It's like your body and like their body kind of like become like one thing. It's like this big teeming mass of people, and you're just part of it. You're like some part of this big organism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you don't
wonder
get
how
much
things
space.
changed. I wonder how things changed when you left India in your tuk-tuk, because I know that's a lot more unusual and you
Yeah.
continued on your journey.
So, advice to anyone who's out there: it's very difficult to drive out of India, like for good. You can get into Nepal quite easily, which we did, and then there's nowhere to go. You're surrounded by the Himalayas. So you come back into India, and then you drive like all the way to the south, and then you realize you're surrounded by ocean, and you have a great time. And then you go north towards like Pakistan, which has a notoriously difficult relationship with India, and lots of crazy vehicle permits that are not really affordable. Again, it's possible, but if you're doing this on the fly, not recommendable. Plan that ahead of time. You'll need a lot of like deposits, like you'll have to give a 400% deposit on your vehicle to get certain permits.
Wow.
Same with Iran. And this is a way to sort of mitigate like their auto market from being crazy fluctuated by other countries. They kind of like, yeah, they're more, how do I say, sealed off. So they don't want their market being screwed up by tons of people driving in from like Turkey and selling their cars and stuff like that, or from India. Anyways, Myanmar as well, you can't drive across it. You can drive in, but you can't then continue on and leave into Thailand. So we were stuck. Is the long and the short of it.
Oh.
And got very, very lucky to just meet the right people. A gentleman who makes motorbikes in Rajasthan. He hooked us up with his friends who do shipping to Turkey. So we managed to get the tuk-tuk shipped to Turkey, which was that took a bit longer than we thought. The boat actually broke down, so we were stuck in Istanbul for like 2.5 months waiting for our home to arrive.
Oh wow.
But your question was when it arrived. That was quite a night. It was during the midst of the referendum in Turkey, where Erdogan had kind of like torn up the constitution and created sort of a pseudo dictatorship for himself. So people were pretty stressed because the people didn't, vote for that. And it was kind of dark times. There had been a military coup, which was believed to have been staged. And Erdogan had created this kind of state of emergency. So we were not looking forward to running into the police or anybody, when we got to Turkey. We're like, we're just gonna get the tuk-tuk and we're just gonna leave. It's we don't want to hang around and test them with this. But surprise, surprise, the tuk-tuk arrives and they'd put the wrong kind of fuel in her. So the engine just like completely stopped. So we had to find a way to get her to a petrol station to get diesel. And that included like pushing, which we're used to, getting pulled by a rope down the highway by some random people that we met. Terrible idea. And eventually just biting the bullet and getting a tow truck to pick us up. So by the time we finally are like headed for the Bosphorus tunnel to try to get to where we're staying on the Asian side, we bump into both the police and the military at the same time at a checkpoint. And we're just like,
Oh.
all right, we're screwed. Like, we're just screwed. We're going into a tunnel in a vehicle we just brought from India. And we're living in the back. There's like 3 people in this thing. Our friend was with us as well. Like, this doesn't bode well. And the police decided that the best thing to do would be to give us some cake that they had. They're like, you guys look like you need some cake. Like, here you go. And like, do you want to take some selfies? This is great. And we were all just shocked. We were all just like, how in the world is this still working? You know, how is it still? I mean, the tuk-tuk's really cute. So I guess that did the trick. We were all like dirty and stressed out. So definitely they liked the tuk-tuk.
I feel like this is the power of the tuk-tuk outside of India. It becomes this
Yeah,
much more unusual creature that everybody wants the photos with, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, she became like our passport in some sense. She just get us through
Wow.
all the borders.
How long did your journey take altogether?
Um, Altogether was about 900 days from
Wow.
that includes
Incredible.
the preamble going from Italy to Singapore.
Hmm.
Um,
How
and then
long was
yeah,
the in India, once you left India, how much longer was the journey
the
from that point
let's see.
with the tuk-tuk?
Yeah, we arrived in Turkey in like I think April, something like that. And we arrived in Berlin, which ended up being the final destination. We arrived in Berlin in December. So
Okay.
a good
Wow.
like 7 months, 6, 7 months.
And where is the tuk-tuk now? What happened
All right.
to your
So
tuk-tuk child?
the tuk-tuk, well, here's the funny thing. The tuk-tuk is actually not our child. It's my grandmother. Her name's
Oh,
Monica because the day we had bought the vehicle, I got a message from my mom. It was a picture of my grandmom giving us thumbs up on her deathbed, and she died the same day that we got the tuk tuk. So we said, okay,
oh my
we got to
gosh.
name her Monica after my grandmother.
That's amazing.
I think that was really the good spirit right there. You know, I think she was keeping an eye on us. It seems pretty unfathomable that we would have got through everything we did without a little extra power, a little higher power. So I give it to Monica.
Yeah.
Um, and all the people who helped us along the way. But yeah, so she is happily living in Germany at the moment, in a little barn in the woods outside Berlin. There's a really lovely couple, two film producers who we met on the road. They have a house out there. They said they would look after her, which is it's just a pleasure to know she's safe.
Hmm.
And we'll try to
And
get
do
her
you
back on the road at
plan,
some point
that was a
for
question I
sure.
had. You plan to reunite with her and have more tuk-tuk adventures with Monica?
Yeah, I would say probably not transcontinental ones, but ideally, I would love to convert her into an electric, um, just so she's a little quieter and a little more friendly to the environment. And probably like to get her to Portugal would be, I think, the dream. I think that there's a lot of tuk-tuks in Portugal. She would fit right in, and yeah, it'd be a great like beach vehicle. You could just like live by the sea. It's like probably about the right size to store a surfboard under.
Wow, that's where I live. I live in Lisbon. So, hey, if
Ah,
you get
perfect.
Monica to Portugal, come on over. We'll
Thank
bring the
you. Yeah,
digital nomad world family even closer together.
that sounds great. That sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been the dream for a while. Actually, we've been trying to get to Portugal, and there's just been one like force majeure after another. That's like, it's not
Mhm.
time yet. You don't, nope, you don't get to go to Portugal yet. We've been there, but we haven't found our a way to stay there.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious about the cookbook that you mentioned. Is that the current project that you're finishing? And can you tell me
Yes,
more about that?
for sure. So, I mean, you can tell probably from this like rambling interview that I'm giving you, there's a lot of stories behind this.
There's so many stories. I wish we had more time. That's yeah.
Well, thank you. That's a nice plug for the cookbook, because the cookbook is the whole trip. It's 50 stories and 50 recipes, spanning those like 3 years of travel, and all the like little intricacies of how it happened, how it worked, and mostly the stories of the people who inspired us to do this, and to, gave us the chance to become better people. And not saying we did it, but they gave us a good shot. And yeah, that will be, it's basically written. And we met a publisher while we were, he asked how the tuk-tuk became a career. We started running a food truck out of the tuk-tuk in Berlin. And one day I was making smoothies, and apparently the smoothie was really good, and found ourselves a publisher.
What kind of smoothie
So
was it, out of curiosity?
banana strawberry,
Okay.
just
All
a
right.
classic,
Very good.
Yeah. So that
Yes.
if you guys need to publish a book, just, banana strawberry smoothie, tuk tuk, and send the money to your friend in Cambodia whose house flooded. Because that's the trick. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, the idea is to try to get that published by the end of the year. Have perhaps a documentary on the side, and it's going to be called Fang It, FANGIT, Fang It, a
Dang
guide
it.
to vagabond cooking.
And why this title?
Um, I think because we both really loved the newest Mad Max movie when we started this trip, and it's some slang that basically means like pedal to the metal, like just do it, fang it, and it's a
Okay.
cookbook. So it was kind of our mentality throughout the thing. There was a lot of times where there wasn't really time to think, um, and you just have to get up and go. Just have to do it.
I
Um,
love that. What kind of recipes are these going to be? Are these things that you can obviously make simply in the back of a tuk-tuk, or is it
yeah,
a
that's
variety of cuisines, I'd imagine, as you travel with different
yeah.
ingredients, things like that?
The answer is both, which is pretty cool. Like, um, so my friend, the cook, his name's Guglielmo. He is a really good cook. I mean, he's worked as a chef in pretty high class restaurants. So he's got an amazing like kind of sense and knowledge of food, and of like the history of food and of all these techniques. And he was feeling pretty like constricted with like, we started with like a camping stove, and then we upgraded to like a pretty terrible kerosene stove, and then we would cook in random people's kitchens, or in someone's sailing boat. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna have to use these really simple tools to like create complex recipes. So the recipes are all simple in a way to make. They are cooking, travel recipes in some way, but they tell a pretty deep story because of the way in which he puts together the ingredients and the history behind the techniques. So each recipe is, it's simple, but dense.
I'm excited. I would love to learn more simple recipes also as I travel on the road. But it sounds like your friend has an amazing, like you said, sense of food. And but also, like, did you make any films of him going out and looking for ingredients in these different places and making the food?
Yeah, I mean, that was always kind of intertwined with these documentaries I would make about the people.
Hmm.
because we would have to cook for them. So many times, we're out trying to find ingredients in some like night market, or like literally on the side of a mountain, or talking to the local farmer, or going fishing. So that's always kind of it's involved in those films. It's never explicitly. It's not like a cooking video, you know.
Right.
But you, yeah, you get a sense. You can kind of taste it.
Right. When you guys were traveling in your tuk-tuk, how did you have a very strict budget, or were you making money along the way by having these dinners for people? I'm just trying to figure out how you were funding it as you were going.
There was no strict budget. We started with savings, and then when we got to Singapore, when we'd run out of those, yeah, we amassed a certain amount of money via the dinner parties, and then on the crowdfunding, and then found some gentlemen who commissioned us to do video logs, like daily video logs, while we were in India.
Wow.
Terrible idea. There's like no Wi-Fi in India, so it's like impossible to upload something every day. We did it. We did it for like 100 days, but the whole video log became about trying to find Wi-Fi. So that was stupid. Um, Funny, but kind of stupid, and not the point of what we were trying to do. Um, Anyways, with all of that, and as well, a gentleman also stopped by our restaurant in India and said, "I want to invest in this," and gave us $10,000 and was like, "Make a company, give me part of it." And we said, "That sounds great. We'll take whatever we
Amazing.
can. We'll take what we can get. We'll do whatever it takes." So yeah, we took all of that money and somehow managed to just like blow it in like a year through India, and through all the like kind of problem solving or feasting or fun that we wanted to have. We never really had a plan of how to spend money. We would just spend it until we found more. um, when we got to Istanbul, the dinner parties saved us again.
Mhm.
um, by the time we got to Berlin, at the very end of this all, we were completely broke again. Um, and it was winter, and we were living on the streets in a tuk-tuk. So I recommend planning a little better, so you have some money to spend when you're in Berlin, so you can go out partying there instead of in India.
Well,
Um,
what I love, Cameron, is that like you went and you started this, you had a vague idea of what might happen, what you wanted to do, but you didn't know how each step of the way was going to continue to happen. You just kind of went out on faith, and you met people and they came to you as well, and you reached out to the community. It was a combination of everything, and you were able to do it. And Monica is safe and sound in Germany, and you will reunite. That's incredible.
I'm really happy to hear all that put together in like one sentence. That's beautiful indeed. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and I really hope that this cookbook comes out at the end of the year, and Fang It, that's actually a very memorable title. So I hope everybody listening keeps tabs on what you're working on. I wanted to ask, if people do want to follow the progress of this cookbook and what you're doing now, where can they
Right.
go?
Okay, so that would be SolFood Cinema, SOL, like the sun. Uh, SolFood Cinema. You can find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. We're not there very often, but if we have good news, we'll definitely post up. And and yeah, there's definitely much more to come. We have another trip in mind at the moment, but maybe that will be for the next interview.
I was gonna say, do you have a sneak peek of that, or you're still in the planning stages?
We are actually planning. That's the big news, that we're actually going to plan something, and yeah, it's going to take us around the world. So that will be without using any commercial transportation. So that would be cool,
Oh, very,
among
very
other things.
exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna follow Soul Food Cinema on Facebook and Instagram and keep
Yep.
finding out what you're doing next, and looking out for that cookbook.
Yeah, and hopefully getting out there and traveling. It's summertime. It's beautiful.
Yes, yes. I hope all of us are getting out there more and more and things are continuing to open up
Mm.
because wow, it was for everybody. It's been such a hard 2 years, 2.5 years. Wow. I
Was
can't believe I'm
that
saying
part of
that.
the reason why you guys started this podcast?
I think we want to inspire everybody to join this digital nomad life or give it a try if we can. And there has certainly been a huge influx of people from since this pandemic. So I hope that anybody who was in an office that now has a chance to work remotely, for example,
Yeah,
finally gets a chance to live their dreams and go where they want to go. So
that's
yeah, well,
phenomenal.
thank you, Cameron, for sharing your story.
Absolutely,
It's
Becca.
incredible. And yeah, can't wait till you reunite with Monica.
Appreciate that. I'll send you a picture.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'll check out Soul Food Cinema. And Digital Nomad World listeners, thank you so much. We're going to be back here again next Monday at 5 p.m. UK time. Thank you.
Take care. Take care and happy